we're here today with Charity. We're at the SUU campus. I came across Charity through the Innovation Center, some people over there. And they had known I'd been working on tenant solutions and a way to help tenants out and figure out this weird dynamics between tenants and landlords that seem to be out there. And so Charity was introduced to me from them, so we appreciate that connection we made. And I'm glad to be here with Charity. So Charity, tell us a little bit about you and just, I don't know, just a rough background, just a brief background.
So I've been going to SUU for about 3 years now. I've rented housing every single year that I've lived here. I'm going to school to be a vet, so I'm graduating with my bachelor's degree in biology this semester. And so that's really exciting, but yeah, I mean.
Okay, so that's
me.
A little bit about it. Okay, and so of course this is about renting and tenants and housing. So we want to know real quick, just a little bit about your experience coming here to Cedar City, what you experienced, and was it good or bad?
So I've had several landlords. My first landlord, I didn't have any problems with, and like for the most part, landlords are pretty chill. Like if you don't have an issue, then you don't have to contact your landlord and you don't have problems. But there have been a couple situations that I've been in where I've lived in houses that weren't in good condition and they weren't taken care of, and they weren't places that people would want to be living in. Yeah. And landlords can be very difficult, and in those situations I asked for help and we asked him to take care of these things, and he was just super unwilling to work with us and didn't want to take care of the things that needed to be taken care of.
Okay, so your first experience renting, this is your first time on your own,
yeah,
away from home renting. It was out of a scale of 1 to 10.
It was probably like an 8. It was a pretty good experience. Like I didn't really ever have a ton of problems with her. We didn't really talk to her a whole bunch. It was just kind of, we did our own thing, we lived there, and then we moved out.
Okay, and you moved out. So your second place you went to, that was after that one. So your second place you went to, scale of 1 to 10. How was that one?
So that one, probably, my landlords I didn't have problems with in my second house, but my roommates I had issues with, and that was something that I went to my landlords for, and they were like, we're not your referee.
No, that's a good point. We don't cover that a lot on tenant solutions, but it is a dynamic part of renting still. So.
And then my third place, it was probably, I'd probably give it like a 3 or a 4 out of 10. It was not a good situation.
Okay, so the third one was the bad one.
Yeah.
Okay. Tell us more about what you're working on at school and how that came about.
So because I didn't get very much help when I was going through my issues with my landlord, and there were a lot of people that I reached out to, and nobody could give me advice, nobody could tell me what I was supposed to do in that situation. And so I had to go and I had to do all of this research on my own and figure out all of the legal procedures that I had to go through in order to get my monies back, and so that I could move out of this situation that was not safe. And I want to start a resource here on campus. That's my whole project, is starting something that students can go to and get that help that they need, because I don't want students to end up like how I did, in a situation that is not safe and that you should not be living in, and no help, nobody to get you out of it.
Yeah. Sounds like a cool project, quite honestly. I'm excited for you. What was the main problem for you? Besides living in these conditions, what was frustrating for you?
I think really the most frustrating part was communication with my landlord. Like trying to get that line of communication in and build that relationship with him, just because it was just so, like, I'm fighting him on everything, it felt like. It was a struggle. It was just like trying to make that a good relationship where I could talk to him and I could communicate with him, rather than like an argument constantly all the time arguing. Yes. So there was a lot of things in our house, and I think that we probably went we brought all of them to him at once. And maybe that was something that we should have been like, hey, so there's a couple of these things that we would really like fixed first, and then we can come and follow through with these things throughout, like while we're living there. But we just kind of made a list of everything, and we're like, here you go. We went into his office and we talked to him face to face. We said, hey, we're having these problems. We're just wondering what we can do about it. And then he put in a couple maintenance requests right there on his computer for a few of the things.
Okay. So he said, yeah, I'll do work on these.
Yeah. And so a couple of the things got done, but most of the really big stuff that we were concerned about wasn't taken care of.
And then what led it to further problems?
Yeah. So we asked him again, I emailed him and I was like, hey, we were just wondering if you've had a chance to look at this, like we still haven't gotten it fixed. And he was
How much time had gone?
I only lived there for 2 months, so it was probably only a couple weeks, like more than 10 days, because it's like I don't remember what it was, but anyways, so it was a few weeks. But so we asked him again, we're like, hey, just following up with this, and he was like, yeah, we're sending somebody to fix it, and then a bunch of time goes by, still isn't taken care of, and so we served him I went and did research, and we gave him the legal papers. Yeah. It's like, here's this condition that is not taken care of, and you can come and take care of it, or we can move out. Yeah. And that's what we ended up doing. She went and looked at the house before she moved into the house and was like, I want these things fixed before I get to the house, and they weren't done either.
I think there's a lot of people that will get into that kind of situation, and then they'll just deal with the house or the property, and then they'll get mad and live with the property in poor condition. So what made it so that you were willing to just, you know what, we're done, we're getting out, instead of, we'll just make it through the semester and then move out?
Well, I've lived in houses where it's just an old house. It's got some things that are wrong with it. Like, I can put up with it, and it's not going to do anything to my health, and it's not going to affect me health-wise or physically. But this house had a lot of things that could have made us very sick, or so we think, and it just didn't feel like a very safe situation. And it was something that me and my roommates were both on board with, and we all decided that this was not a situation we should be in. And so we all teamed up together and got ourselves out of it.
Did you have any legal advice? Because not a lot of 19 to 21-year-olds have the ambition to do that, right? Yeah.
Honestly, it's just, like, I didn't have a ton of help. It was just something that I went and I did all the research on my own, because I asked people, like, on campus for help, and nobody was willing. And then, like, I called Utah Legal Services, and they helped a little bit. They gave me some of the, like, here are the rules sort of thing, but not anything of what steps to take next, because that's legally they can't tell me that. Like, they can't give me advice. So it was just something that I did. I couldn't pay for an attorney. I couldn't pay for anybody to give me advice. So I just did it all on my own.
So you kind of took the bull by the horns and did it yourself. What was, like, how far legally did you have to get into it to kind of push this issue?
Well, we ended up, so the notice that we served him, the notice of deficit conditions, he didn't respond to it. He was like, I'm not going to fix these things. It's not my problem. He had 10 days to take care of the things according to the notice, and he didn't. So we moved out, and he was trying to send us to collections. He was trying to get our rent from collections, and was saying, oh, you can't do this. This is illegal. You guys didn't do it the right way. Trying to tell us, like, that we were wrong, when in reality we're following the rules, we're following the steps that we're supposed to be taking. And then it eventually got to the point where we had to serve him court papers, or we would have gotten sent to collections.
So you did find an attorney to write some papers for you, or you did them yourself? You did yourself? Yeah. Cool. Okay. Good.
So I got on, like, the court websites and everything, and went through all of the steps and figured out what papers I needed and filled them out, and I served them to him. And we went to court.
And you did it. You did go to court. So you went in front of a judge?
So it was actually mediated. It was an online mediated dispute that we did. Okay. But yeah, so we had somebody that mediated our conversation and eventually helped us work to a conclusion.
Okay. All right. So tell us the results then.
So our results, we didn't get our deposits back or anything, but we didn't end up having to pay any of the rent for the time that we were gone, that we moved out, and our leases ended. So they ended our leases, and they didn't charge us anything extra.
Okay, so the landlord agreed to just terminate the lease. Yeah. You parted ways, but you didn't get your deposit back. Okay, so
that is something that we could have fought for, but at that point we had been going for a whole year, and we were both burnt out. And as college students with somebody, like, without an attorney, that wasn't something that we could pursue anymore.
Yeah, that's hard, and it does take time. That's another thing to point out. A lot of these solutions aren't quick, and anytime you're dealing with law or real estate, they're not quick answers, or that's why we try to really help people get ahead of the game. Like the purpose of Tenant Solutions is, yeah, we want to help people through issues, but we want to help people get ahead of them so they avoid the issues. Had you gone into this looking at it from a different perspective, thinking, you know, these are the things I need to look at, these are the things I need to protect myself with before I even move in, maybe you could have avoided this whole thing, right?
If I had ever gone and looked at the property beforehand, like,
oh, so you
yeah, because I
sat
wasn't in Cedar City when I signed the lease, so I didn't have an opportunity to go physically look at it until I moved in.
Okay. If you would have found Tenant Solutions before, and we could have represented you, so a tenant representation, and we could have gone and inspected the property for you, do you think it would have something you would have done? Okay.
Or even like some landlords will go and do like virtual tours.
Yeah, but photography's pretty good, right? And the landlords are there to rent the place. They're there representing the owner, not the tenant. Of course, they want to have somebody in there. They don't want vacancies, or it looks bad for their landlord. But what are some things that you want to maybe share about what you're doing or what you hope to have happen?
So for my project, I have made a survey, and I'm going to send it out campus-wide and just kind of get an idea of how satisfied tenants are with their housing. So like what kind of problems they're having, what things we need to address, and then I'll take the data from that and analyze it and figure out where our needs are, and then implement those into my resource and my website. So I'm making a website that will lay out all of these guidelines and different procedures and things that students can go to, and they can look at it and they can get the advice and the information that they need, and then follow those steps through the legal procedures should they choose to do any of that stuff. Just going based off of the needs of our students here on campus.
Okay. So one other question I have for you: how related do you feel like campus housing is, and studying and being in an environment with housing kind of like what you were in has to do with your ability to focus on schoolwork and really excel in your academics and in the classroom?
Well, I know that when I was living in the house, the terrible house, I came home every day and I was stressed out, and it was something that I had to deal with, and I was like, this isn't getting fixed, why is this going on? And I'm constantly having to reach out to my landlord and trying to do all of these things on top of all of the schoolwork that I'm trying to do. So I'm trying to study for my chemistry classes while I'm also now studying law and my contract. And it was just a huge stress, and because that court case went on for so long, it was a stress that I had not even after I moved out of the house. So being in a house that is comfortable and safe and clean is huge for your mental health and your success in school.
I think that's why a lot of people don't fight it. They just put up with it. They do it. They get into it and they just deal with it. There's only going to be a semester or two, and I'll just stay away from it. I'll spend more time at the university maybe instead of at home.
That's what we did.
Yeah, you kind of come here and use the facilities a lot at the university, but it's sad to not have a place that you can go and feel really comfortable at home. From the amount of people that you've talked, you haven't done your survey yet, so it'll be interesting to see when those results come back and what. But from the people that you've talked to, how many people are experiencing this kind of a problem in college housing? You know, it might not be specifically here in this little town, but what do you think? Like, is there a...
Nearly every single student that I have talked to has had at least one experience with a landlord where they weren't cooperating, or their housing was not where it should be, or there was something going on with their housing that they didn't get help with. At least one experience from every student.
That's a lot. That's just off-campus housing, right? So on campus, it seems to be a little more controlled.
Yes, on campus is a little more controlled. It's a little more expensive, but they take good care of it.
Yeah. Do you feel like there's a huge mental health challenge, like I would say crisis, but is there a huge problem amongst students that relate to off-campus housing that you would say, or is mental health not necessarily related to housing?
I would say it is. Like, even just finding housing. Like at the end of a semester when your lease is up and you have to try to find something else, it's a huge stress. And because you're trying to find something that is going to fit your needs and it's going to be close enough and it's going to be in a good enough condition, And you have to do that every single semester once your lease is up. And it's just super stressful. And like I talk to students all the time, we're like, oh, my lease is up and I don't know where I'm gonna go.
Yeah.
And it's very stressful. Depends on like where you're at, like if you like the house that you're in, if your landlord has let you keep your lease.
Okay.
Just depends.
I'm trying to think when I was in college, 20 plus years ago, housing was still the same. I mean, people dealt with housing. So I had off-campus housing. But then I got married after a year and a half or 2 years of college, and we moved into a apartment. So it was a little bit, I don't know, it wasn't, like we were all crammed into this place, 6 of us in this little apartment when we were single. And then after I got connected to somebody else, and this might be a good thing to think about, the more you can stay in contact with people and find connections. Like there's people graduating every year. Where are they graduating? Who are the graduates and where were they living? Did they like it or not? So a friend of mine was moving out of a place where it was in the basement of an elderly woman's house. So my wife and I moved in there. We were lucky to get the place. It was just through word of mouth and contact. But that might be something to consider doing for, a bit of advice for students to always be looking for a better place.
Yeah, or if you know a senior that's moving out and they're going away, be like, hey, where are you living at?
Exactly, yeah. Find out what they're paying, where they live, and see if you can get that. And they might even be able to, the property manager might be able to.
Recommend something for you?
Yeah. Is there any advice that you would give anybody renting for their first time?
Oh, I think that if you're renting for your first time, it's very, very important to make sure that you know everything before you sign anything. So you always want to ask as many questions as possible, get as much clarification as possible, ask about fees, ask about rent, ask about when things are due, and look at the property before you move in, and always read through like the contract and everything before you sign or move in.
Well, that's hard though all the time because sometimes you're under pressure, right? You don't have a lot of time. You got to hurry and find something. You're already moving here. You got transferred here. You don't know, like it's last minute. So.
And if that's a risk you're willing to take, then that's a risk you're willing to take.
Yeah. And sometimes it's hard to know where to go to search for the housing. So a couple of places you can go to the universities and look for housing. You can go to real estate offices and shop around.
SUU also has an off-campus housing list on their website that you can go.
So people can advertise their place on there, yeah. Real estate companies, property management companies. A lot of times you can go to, Marketplace or, KSL, Zillow, lots of other places to find housing, but those are a lot of good questions to ask before you tie the knot with someone, so to speak. Well, thanks, Charity, for being here with us and kind of sharing your experience a little bit. We wish you the best of luck with everything you're doing on your project. Just know how we can help, how we can team up, what we can do to help solve some of these issues a lot of people are dealing with in finding housing and enjoying their rental experiences, college students or families, it doesn't matter. But anyway, thanks for being here.
Yeah, thank you.